Hi, folks. You are watching and listening to a special edition of Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. Making it so special is I'm Mike Morales here in the San Gabriel Valley of Southern California, but that gentleman out there is
Rick Levy in the San Pasqual Valley, also in Southern California.
And that's why it's so special, because we're actually in the same time zone. So, Rick, I've been chomping at the bit to get to this brand. You folks who are following us on Instagram at Tequila Aficionado, you might have seen some of the photos we've been putting up of this tequila, El Baston del Rey, which roughly translates to the king's scepter, or the king's cane, but that would be the literal translation. But a baston is a scepter. And you know what I really like about this, Rick? I miss
the pressed tin label.
Yeah. You know, and when I saw
I'm loving the pressed tin label.
Yeah, me too.
Even though it's like an off-the-shelf bottle. We've seen other juices in this bottle, but the pressed tin label, I love it.
Yeah, well, you know what used to come in this kind of a bottle was years ago was Espolon. I tell this story. We've been this coming July we'll be in business 23 years. And so we've seen a lot of brands come and go, and what we consider now as treasure bottles, we were drinking because they were cheap. You know, Espolon, in those days, Espolon and Corazon were stablemates at the same distillery. Corazon was the higher end. It was a bit softer, but Espolon was that same flavor and $20 cheaper, at least 10 to 20 bucks cheaper anywhere you shopped. And it came in a bottle like this. And now you can't even find, I don't know why brands are not going back to some of this old school stuff, because it just adds a little bit of class to a simple bottle, basically. So
yeah. I've got some old bottles that have the tin labels, and I treasure them.
Oh yeah, because when the brand gets big enough and then they go to an insultant, and the insultant says, "Oh, you got to change the bottle. You got to get rid of the freaking label." And it's like, why? Oh, because you got to stand out from the crowd. Doesn't this work for you? So anyway, but that's above my pay grade. As usual, we're gonna taste the juice first. Then we're gonna give you all the ins and outs. Wait till we tell you what distillery this is coming from. I'm really anxious to try this because of the description that we got from the powers that are promoting the brand and have a stake in the brand. So
possibly some interesting insights to come.
Yes, very interesting backstory and history, which again is oh my, leading me to believe that maybe there's a reason it's in that foil label. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. Here we go. I'm pouring mine in a Stasso Jarrito that I use for tequila. This is an 80 proof tequila. So for those of you who are watching us and are collectors, you might want to keep an eye out for this particular bottle. Just for the style of bottle that it is, because you really can't see these anymore. You don't see them very often. What kind of legs and tears are you getting? My lighting here's not the great. It's kind of gloomy outside, folks. So my lighting.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you see that there? It's coating the glass.
Oh yeah.
We're getting some substantial legs and tears forming.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. And the reason we look for legs and tears, folks, is because it kind of gives you an idea. Number one, visually you want to take a look at this and go, wow, this is some tequila, blanco tequilas almost look mercurial. They're shiny, they look like mercury, and others are not, and that's okay too. But when you look for legs and tears, you kind of it gives you an idea of what the mouthfeel will be, whether it's going to coat your palate,
right?
What kind of character it's going to have. And just because there aren't very many legs and tears it's not a bad thing either. Yeah, there it goes. Wow, it's taking its own sweet time though, isn't it?
It sure is.
And I'm going to take that as a good sign. Oh, there they go. For those of you listening to us on the podcast, I'm still looking for legs and tears. I'm still looking for them. All right, well, let's see what we get on the nose here. I got more of an impact. We just broke the seal on these bottles before we came on camera, and I got more of an impact of agave as I popped the cork. Now is it muted for you, or is it just perfumey? What is it? Oh, there it goes.
I'm getting Agave Forward.
See, here's what I'm getting. I guess mine has to open up a little bit. I got anise.
Well, I did crack the seal on mine a couple days ago and popped the cork, and
so you had to, once you see.
so I probably got some of that reaction going that
Okay.
Starts it to open up inside the bottle.
I am getting a little bit of anise on the sides of the glass, and I always look for that, especially in tequilas that we consider old school, with a more labor intensive method and process. It's actually more flowery and fruit forward.
I'm getting some lime zest.
Okay. Yeah, yours must have opened up a lot sooner than mine. And there goes some legs and tears. Wow, there's some thick legs and there they go. Yeah, it took a while to open up and bloom in the glass. And that's really why we take as much time as we do when we do these reviews, because just making a sudden assessment isn't fair to the brand. And certainly not fair to you folks who are watching or listening.
I'm getting, so what am I getting on the nose there, the fumes? Is that alcohol or is it the anise?
When I inhale just through my nose, I get the alcohol, which is subtle. It's there, it needs to be there.
Yeah.
But when I do it with my mouth open, when I inhale, especially with the sides of the glass, I'm getting a little bit of anise, or what some people call fennel. It's kind of it's a type of licorice sensation, aroma that, I think anise leans more toward licorice, or fennel is a little bit lighter and more vegetal.
Right.
Now I'm getting the lime zest on the top.
It seems to have a slightly herbal, grassy quality to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, to say the least, it's complex. I mean, there's stuff going on in there, which is, again, a good sign. Feel like diving in?
I do.
Okay,
let's go.
Let's give this a shot here.
I'm thinking that's some beefy old school stuff there.
I'm getting, there's some mamposteria. There's brick and adobe oven somewhere. When I say mamposteria, that means it's a brick oven that's that's kind of sealed off with adobe. Yeah, and on the retronasal there was a lot of that brick oven kind of. That was just my first pass, and I'm going to have to give it a second pass for sure. But there was a bit of sweet. There was sweet on the intake right away. Mm-hmm. Not much in the pepper explosion at mid palate, but I remember I sensed that it was just a lot of brick oven, a lot of baked agave, not cooked. And and maybe even a touch of smoke, maybe, but only on the retronasal. And that would, and I don't, here, let me go in again. You go ahead. You tell me what you're getting. Cause I'm all over the
Yeah,
place.
well, I thought, so it goes in sweet. It's kind of creamy, almost buttery. And I'm getting a big, sort of pepper effect around the mouth, not necessarily directly on the palate or the back of the palate where a lot of times pepper sits, but like up in the gums and stuff. I'm getting sensation there, and yeah, maybe that's attributed to what you were saying, Mike.
Wow, this is dense. The character on this is really dense. And you know what else I'm getting? I literally am getting, it's almost reacting like a mezcal or like a raicilla, because I actually can taste the plant. You know how difficult it is to even after distillation to get any kind of plant, like you and I've done several mezcals together.
Yeah.
So, when you're tasting espadín, you're tasting tobalá, and I've never tasted blue agave in a liquid. I have dipped baked agave in my blanco tequila and done that. And I did that years ago. That was one of my first things that we ever did to imprint on you what agave is like. And recently, Bryce, our guy in Austin, we had a chance to dissect curado, which is a blanco tequila. It was Tomas Estes' his last line of the extended of his line for Ocho before he passed away. And what it is blanco tequila that's infused. One is infused with blue agave. The other varietal is infused with espadín, and then the other one is infused with another type of agave. It escapes me right now.
Oh,
this reminds me of curado, the blue agave, because that to me is the closest you'll ever get. If you've never been to a distillery, you don't know what baked agave is like, get a bottle of curado and get the one that says agave azul, blue agave, because it's infused with baked blue agave. They float these. It's basically a tea bag. They float these in the not in the stills, but in the silos where they're keeping it in storage, and they only do it for a few hours, just enough to get to soak in a little bit of that flavor. And I kept half of the bottle because I want to use it as a tool to show people who've never been to a distillery and don't know what blue agave is going to be like, to be able to pour some of that in your hand or in a glass and smell it. This is the closest thing I've gotten to curado. There's plant in there that, like I said, only in raicilla and bacanora and sotol, where you taste the plant. It's rare you taste the plant of the blue agave. You taste all the characteristics, the lime zest, all that stuff, but you don't get that thickness, that denseness that you get in a mezcal, right? Wow, I'm impressed, man. What about you? What do you think? Am I totally off base with this or what?
Well, I think you're referencing experiences that I haven't had, for one. So I'm glad to sit here and listen to you explain those things. But yeah, it's certainly a standout. Like when we do mezcals, we talk about the difference between tequila and mezcal, where you can drink your mezcal out of a tennis shoe, and you're still going to get full flavor, and it's going to be big. And with a lot of the modern tequilas we've had, you really kind of have to dig, and you have to parse out all of the little delicate nuances. And this is pretty big.
Yeah, it's bigger than I thought it would be. I didn't know what to expect. We did some. I'm going to have to pour some more because I'm.
And I was getting that, that kind of masonry accent you were talking about.
Yes, masonry.
On the back of the palate.
Yeah. And
so what's your thought on the finish? Like, I'm having more of a lingering experience in the mouth. It's like the creaminess on the palate and the effect that's going on around on the gums, more than say where a lot of times we feel the finish, which is, the warmth on the back of the palate and going down.
I think the like a good mezcal sometimes, where the people are worried, they're all afraid of the smoke, and smoke is really second or tertiary now with mezcals. It should never be up front. And what happens is the more passes, the more it starts to coat your palate. And I think we dove in like 3 times already. So there's this lingering flavor. I don't want to call it savoriness. It's a baked. Like I say, the only thing I can compare it to right now is curado, because it's heavy on the palate, and it coats the palate, the plant itself, and that's what I'm getting. I'm getting plant. Initially I did get the masonry oven, the mamposteria. You get that, especially in the retronasal.
Now, is it the same kind of plant quality you would get if, say, if they didn't trim the pencas as close, and they left a little bit extra?
Oh yeah, well they do that with mezcal
on the end of the.
Some people say that it's got some waxiness and bitterness is where the pencas are, and that's but when you see pictures of espadín being harvested, you'll notice that they leave a good portion of the penca still on there, because that's part of the character. I don't know how they're shaving their agave. We have a lot of backstory to tell you, but let me just take one more. I want to make sure I'm getting what I think I'm getting, because it's really reacting more like a raicilla or like a mezcal, because again, right, you get those plant characteristics as well as everything else, the brightness, the lime zest. It's weird to get that in a tequila.
And the tease is that there's something going on in the
yeah.
And it's definitely having an effect on the character of the juice.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. This what that sounds like, folks. That's me doing a retronasal. If you hear that on the podcast,
yeah,
I detect.
And I've stopped doing that because I've choked on camera doing it before.
Well, yeah, so. I know, but it's I'm getting plant. This is like a mezcal. It's not a dense mezcal kind of plant like, but it's certainly there. And that's really unusual for a tequila. So I'm going to err on the side of what we're getting. This is old school. This is so old that I would say, and I haven't had. I know Rick probably has a few of the Cascaween and where they beat it up with a bat. It's so that it's really very labor intensive, and it's so old school. And it comes in at a higher ABV. You know what I would love? I would love this to be higher. Yeah. I would love this to be like a 90.
That would be fun.
92 proof, because it really. I think the average consumer is going to not understand what they're getting. Anyway,
right.
Tell people where the distillery is. Let's give them some of the background stuff and.
Yeah, well, this is what is it? It's 1477 there, right?
Yeah.
1477. This is Puerto de Hierro, Leticia Hermosillo's distillery in El Arenal. And yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. This is a brand that they make at that distillery to their specs. All right, and I'm going to read to you what the gentleman who sent this to us. Well, first of all, let me say before I get into that, let me say that this tequila was brought to our attention by this particular gentleman, who's a chef, Chef Dave Martin, who wrote the book The Tequila Diet. Okay, Lisa, our managing partner, Lisa Peach on the East Coast, made me aware of this book and that Chef Dave was going to start submitting some recipes. And I looked at the book and I thought, well, how do I get the booze? How do I get the tequila? And that's where it was brought to our attention.
That's the part of the diet I want.
Well, yeah, apparently this cookbook, and I have had a chance to peruse some of the recipes, and Rick, you'd get a kick out of some of these recipes, because I know Rick would use it. Each one of these uses tequila, this particular tequila, El Baston del Rey, in the cocktails and in the dishes. And apparently these dishes are not very complicated, but they're so vast and different. You got fish Veracruz, okay? So all of these require one of these expressions in the recipe, okay? So that's Chef Dave Martin, but the gentleman who sent us the information, who's I'm going to call him the brand owner for lack of anything else. Let me give you his name and give you some of the information that John Miller, he's at Global Pioneer Spirits. That's the name of the importer. This is, let's see how we go about this. Okay. The process is two main differences that we use only 7.5 year agave. So it's the same sugar content as 6 and 8 year agave, but there is a flavor that is unique to the 7th year that we like. Okay, that's what they said so far. They're really picky about it. All of it's from the Highlands. They say I'm not sure if you can correctly use the term terroir with agave. Yes, you can, and that's a significant principle for them. So this flavor, Rick, that we're getting, that was by design. That's what they wanted. Okay. And the other thing that they do is they're cooking. He said, instead of autoclave for 8 to 10 hours, we slow roast the agave for about 3 days. There's nothing wrong with it, but steaming can and produce, let's see, it tend to flatten the flavor, yada, yada. Let's see here, the nuances of the blue agave and caramelize the natural sugars that are inherent in agave. I can tell you right now, there's nothing artificial that I've detected. I think Rick would agree with me. There's nothing going on here that's unusual. But if you don't have a bar for that, you're going to be confused. Okay. Let me just say, Rick, let me just read here. The way the story goes, they are roasting the plant. And I wrote him back. I said, well, if you're roasting something, is this like in an underground oven? Because the only oven above ground that I've known about that roast agave is Raicilla. And I guess this clicked with John, and he wrote back. He says, he says, its roots are with a gentleman who started the brand. His family made Raicilla for about 70 years. And after getting some training as a young chef in the US, he came back to Mexico and tried to experiment with his family's Raicilla techniques to make tequila. So initially, that involved roasting the agave in the type of pits that I mentioned. And he brought the technique to the Leticia Hermosillo family to start making the tequila at her distillery. Apparently, there was a lot of influence on his methods, and but this is not, you know, like Cava de Oro or Adjetivo or any of those. They're completely, it's a whole other animal. And John got involved about 7 years ago. So this brand has been around for a while, Rick, and we're just now getting to hear about it. So
what's really interesting is that, you know, they're roasting these agaves with fire essentially, whereas we're used to them being cooked with steam.
right.
Even you know, when they're in the masonry ovens that we love, they're pumping in steam to cook the agaves. But these are, you know, one way or another sitting over fire as they're cooking.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that is, it's very, very interesting because it's coming out much differently than, you know, a masonry oven that uses steam or an autoclave that pressure cooks them. It, you know, it has a lot of, another thing John was saying is that, you know, it's sort of like the difference between, you know, like when you're cooking carrots, the difference between having steamed carrots versus roasted carrots. And
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. You know, there's this whole other character that comes out when it's done that way. And you know, we're finding that in the juice.
Well, you know, it's like, you know, right now you guys are watching us. It's probably barbecue season. Of course, in California, barbecue season is all year long. But it's like roasted corn, you know, at the county fair or something. You know, it's got that deeper, you know, it brings up the character more so than a steamed, you know, or frozen corn cobs, you know, that you buy at the store. And this is really different. I can't say that in my entire career of drinking that I've had a blue agave tequila that tasted like this and gave off characteristics of a mezcal or a raicilla. This is a really interesting animal. And it wouldn't even be fair to put it in competition with you know, with mainstream run-of-the-mill average tequilas, because
right, it's almost like it'd have to be in an ancestral category or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the, you know, what David Suro is doing with his ancestral tequilas, and he's getting out of Cascawin, you know, tequilas that were beat, you know, that were mashed up with a bat, you know, with a mallet in a canoe, you know, like some mezcals are still, and even raicillas. Yeah, I think you're right, Rick. We're going to have to give this its own category, ancestral. Okay. The Brand of Promise nominee. I'm for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm flapping, I'm waving my paddle here. Yeah, because even like I said, the closest thing that I can relate it to, anybody who's watching this and has had curado, or you want it, or you've seen it, it's just now coming into the U.S. market in a hard way. It's in Texas right now. For those of you in Texas watching, get yourself the curado with agave azul. It's infused with blue agave. This will give you an idea of what this is, baked into the recipe, baked into the character.
Right.
This is a big tequila, but you know what, Rick? In a different way.
Yeah.
It's like right in the middle between a mezcal and a tequila. You've got this.
Yeah.
I'm sold, man. I don't know. By the way,
do we have a price point on it?
I don't have a price point.
I wasn't able to find anything on it.
I don't know where it's available. I would imagine that Old Town would have it, but who knows? I don't know.
No, I couldn't find it at Old Town.
Well then, Zach, if you're watching, you need to get this, or son, who will actually be son.
It's from his favorite distillery. Why wouldn't he have it, right?
No, I'm surprised,
come on, Zach.
Right? Anyway, folks, this is our take on the Blanco tequila. Okay, I know we've kind of we've kind of gone over a while there, but we had to, because we've never, I can't say I've ever tasted this until just recently, but I've never had a tequila, an old school tequila, taste like this. And I'm so damn impressed. I can't wait to taste it as an aged spirit.
Right.
Because this is the base.
And they're doing interesting stuff with their barrels too. So stay tuned.
So stick with us. Excuse me. Let me go in one more time. The more it opens up, the more of the blue agave characteristics you're getting. It really does react. And you know what? Yeah, a little bit of smoke, but not a lot. It's not the smokiness that's turning me on. It's the plant, the baked agave plant that I'm getting, that you and I have had, like I say, in mezcals, and Alex and I have had in raicillas. You're right. It's creamy on the intake. And a lot of raicillas that we've had, that Alex and I have had, it's like velvet. I mean, really just thick and creamy. There's a thickness and a beefiness. I call it gamey. It's like free range, and, it's a difference between, free range buffalo and your average cow, I guess. For those of you who are vegan, I'm sorry.
It's it's old school in a really good way.
Yes. Yeah, and in a very different way that you don't see probably until I get my hands on some of that ancestral stuff from David Suro and Siembra Spirits. I'm gonna hold out, but this stuff,
and it's got the pressed tin label.
Yeah, I love these labels, man. The last one we had like this was Hotel California has a foil label.
Oh, yeah.
Unusual bottles too, and somebody had always said they were going to make them change it, and I said, don't do it, don't change that. You guys have a unique bottle, and it comes in colored glass, which is really tough to get right now because of the supply chain still messed up. But yeah, that foil label, that's a harbinger of good news. Okay. So anyway, Rick, that's our take on Baston del Rey Silver. But stick with us, because we're going to go through the entire line. I promise we'll try not to take up too much time, but then again, no promises. Okay. I'm Mike Morales here in the heartbeat of the San Gabriel Valley. That gentleman out there is
Rick Levy at the ass end of the San Pasqual Valley.
You have been watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. Please subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. Give us a like. It helps on the algorithm, because the world runs on algorithm, okay? And whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.